No attempt in humor at all in what he said. And as a matter of fact, it was a lie. Now, as you pointed to, Will, since the 1960s, you have to get a license to broadcast. This isn't Netflix. This isn't cable. This is broadcast TV. And when you have broadcast TV, you have to, the airwaves are owned by the public.
Why do they think that just because you have a Tonight Show that you must deal in serious issues? That's a danger. It's a real danger. Once you start that, you start to get that self-important feeling that what you say has great import. And, you know, strangely enough, you could use that show as a forum. You could sway people, and I don't think you should as an entertainer.
Rob Schneider has jumped into the Jimmy Kimmel fiasco, and it's savage. The comedy legend torched the left's late-night mascot over his ABC firing, and the woke brigade didn't see it coming. They assumed Rob, being a fellow comic, would sympathize with Kimmel, but instead he dropped verbal nukes that left jaws on the floor. This wasn't hand-holding. It was a comedic ambush. Buckle up. This takedown is one for the books.
Joining me now to figure all this out is actor and comedian Rob Schneider. Rob, it's great to see you here today. Are you chilled? Are you in fear for the future of comedy and free speech?
Well, Will, first of all, I woke up this morning to the incredible shock that apparently TV shows are not guaranteed in our Constitution. I mean, wow.
Rob dropped the first nuke by roasting Kimmel, and the left with a brutal truth bomb. TV shows aren't written into the Constitution. That's right. No matter how loudly the woke mob screams free speech, it doesn't guarantee you a cushy network paycheck. You can say whatever you want, but networks have every right to cut you loose if your words threaten their bottom line. And Rob didn't just stop there. He doubled down with biting sarcasm, ridiculing the left's meltdown over Kimmel's firing. He reminded them with the precision of a sniper shot that the First Amendment only protects you from government censorship, not from your boss deciding you're bad for business. In other words, if you want to spew nonsense and keep your job, you better own a network. Until then, private businesses can and will decide who stays and who goes. Rob made sure the woke crowd heard that loud and clear, but that's not all. Rob Schneider had a lot more to add.
The woke crowd heard that loud and clear, but that's not all. Rob Schneider had a lot more to add.
Second, I'm still waiting for the left, the liberals, to get outraged about Roseanne getting fired for her free speech. And then I'm also waiting. I've been waiting a long time for the left and the Democrats, especially the Democrats on Capitol Hill, for the Twitter files that released that the Biden-Harris administration was actually using the government to pressure Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and especially Twitter to actually censor actual Americans through government pressure.
Rob raises another hard-hitting point. Where was the left's righteous fury when Roseanne Barr was axed from ABC over comments about Valerie Jarrett back then? Silence. Crickets. Not a single tear shed by the same crowd, now clutching their pearls over Jimmy Kimmel. Rob isn't defending Roseanne's remarks. He makes it clear that Barr's comments were wrong, but he's shining a spotlight on the glaring hypocrisy. If the left had no problem watching ABC torch one of its biggest sitcom stars for stepping out of line, why suddenly scream injustice when Kimmel faces the same fate? You can't cheer the firing of someone you dislike and then cry foul when the blade cuts closer to home. Rob's point is simple but devastating. Standards should be consistent. Otherwise, it's not about principles. It's about politics. And Rob made sure to remind the woke mob that hypocrisy is the ultimate punchline.
Here is you have capitalist pressure. Capitalist pressure is really important because what happens is you have to make money or you have to do something of value so that you can get something in return. Now, the interesting thing is it's false advertising because honestly, look, Jimmy Kimmel can be funny, and I don't mean to take anything away from that. But the fact of the matter, can you remember a political joke that went viral? What was something really funny of his? There was no attempt in humor at all in what he said.
Rob reminded the woke crowd that Biden and Harris once pushed much harder via the government. They pressured social media platforms to censor speech. Remember the Twitter row with Elon Musk, which ended very publicly with the world's richest man buying Twitter. And remember how Meta, Facebook's parent company, employed fact-checkers to flag or suppress false information. Those mechanisms, all put in by the left, set the precedent. Yet today, the same voices cry foul because one of their favorites is stuck in a trap they themselves built. Rob isn't denying that misinformation can be harmful. He's arguing consistency. If you supported society policing content when political pressure came from your side, you can't act shocked when the same apparatus gets used against someone you like. Hypocrisy, he says, is showing up in full force.
Matter of fact, it was a lie. Now, as you pointed to, Will, since the 1960s, you have to get a license to broadcast. This isn't Netflix. This isn't cable. This is broadcast TV. And when you have broadcast TV, you have to, the airwaves are owned by the public. And to get that license, you have to be in the interest, like you said, of the public. And so that's why when there's a news van parked in the white zone, they don't get a ticket because they are there to present news to inform the public in the public interest. So what happens is 25% originally was supposed to be the news to inform it, just to get that license. So when you absolutely lie to the public, then you are no longer in the public interest, like Jimmy Kimmel did the other night.
And this is exactly what the woke mob refuses to grasp. Jimmy Kimmel wasn't some poor victim of censorship. He misled the public on a major broadcast network. And when you play that game, there are consequences. No one forced him to comment. There was no gun to his head. No executive demanding he wade into the controversy. Kimmel had every opportunity to either let it slide or at least double-check the facts before running his mouth on national television. But he didn't. He chose to go for the cheap laugh, the partisan jab. And in doing so, he gambled with his own career. When you knowingly spread misinformation, you're not just joking. You're eroding trust in the very platform that pays you. That's not free speech under attack. That's accountability. Rob's point is simple. Kimmel set himself up, and the fallout was entirely self-inflicted.
So it was something dangerous. So with the FCC chairman, he didn't say that he was going to pull the license. He was going to give them a warning and ask for an apology, if what I understood on the Benny Johnson show. And so that's not the government doing it. And when 246 different stations around the country say we're no longer airing this, it's because they heard from their consumers. They heard from their customers. And they said, that's it. We're not doing it. And so Nexstar, who's a great guy over there, Sean Compton, said, that's it. He's the CEO and said, when we have complaints like this and none of the channels, 246.
Rob then tore apart another convenient lie that the government somehow orchestrated Jimmy Kimmel's firing. According to Schneider, that narrative is pure fantasy. The reality, ABC made the call, plain and simple. The network wasn't pleased with what Kimmel said on air, and they had every right to protect their brand. In fact, Rob pointed out that the FCC wasn't even planning to sanction ABC over the comments. At worst, the commission would have asked for a simple apology and moved on. But ABC executives weren't looking for half measures. They considered Kimmel's remarks distasteful, reckless, and damaging to the credibility of their network. So they did what corporations do. They cut ties. It wasn't government censorship. It wasn't political persecution. It was a business decision. Rob's message couldn't have been clearer. Kimmel's downfall wasn't a grand conspiracy. It was his own words colliding with ABC's bottom line.
To say this in defense of people who can get absolutely entrapped into this political echo chamber. And that's what happened to, in my opinion, what happened to Jimmy Kimmel. I heard him talking on some podcast with another comedian, and it's easy to get trapped in your political echo chamber.
And that is exactly what happened to Jimmy Kimmel. What began as a harmless jab at Trump and MAGA quickly snowballed into something much bigger and far more toxic. At first, it was just easy laughs, cheap one-liners that played well with his audience. But before long, Kimmel was no longer telling jokes. He was parroting the same lines you'd hear on cable news. He drifted deeper into the political echo chamber, surrounding himself with voices that only reinforced his own bias. Instead of using his platform to spark real conversation, he shut the door on debate entirely. There was no curiosity, no willingness to hear the other side, no balance. Kimmel stopped being a comedian who entertained everyone and became a partisan mouthpiece who catered to one camp, and in the end, that's what doomed him. He traded humor for politics, and the audience noticed.
Absolutely right about you have to bring value to your employer. You also have to serve, as you pointed out with the FCC's regulation, the public interest. Now, no one denies that you or Jimmy Kimmel can have your opinion, but it's where you use that opinion and on what platform. And there was a time, Rob, when late night hosts seemed to understand that balance a little bit better. And I just wanted to, with you and our viewers, remember together Johnny Carson.
True. Television hosts need to understand the weight of their platform. Whatever they say or do, especially on public networks, isn't just casual banter. It carries influence. Their jokes, announcements, statements, and criticisms ripple far beyond the studio audience and into millions of living rooms across the country. With that reach comes responsibility. It's not about silencing humor or stripping away personality. It's about ensuring that commentary is rooted in truth and serves the broader public interest, not a narrow political agenda. When hosts skew their monologues to appease one side of the aisle, they stop being entertainers and become propagandists. That's when trust errors. A truly great TV host can criticize both sides when necessary, delivering laughs and insights without turning their stage into a campaign rally. Balance doesn't mean bland. It means fair. And in today's climate, fairness is the rarest yet most valuable trait of all.
Think that just because you have a Tonight Show that you must deal in serious issues. That's a danger. It's a real danger. Once you start that, you start to get that self-important feeling that what you say has great import. And, you know, strangely enough, you could use that show as a forum. You could sway people, and I don't think you should, isn't it?
Why do they think that just because you have a Tonight Show that you must deal in serious issues? It's a danger. It's a real danger. Once you start that, you start to get that self-important feeling that what you say is great import. And you know, strangely enough, Johnny Carson set the gold standard for late-night television. And his legacy reminds us what those shows were truly about, entertainment. Carson could discuss anything, even politics, and still keep it light, funny, and enjoyable for everyone. He understood that people tuned in at the end of a long day to laugh, not to be lectured. Fast forward to today, and the landscape looks completely different. Almost every late-night talk show has turned into a political soapbox, more interested in pushing agendas than cracking jokes. And who's their favorite punching bag? Donald Trump. Night after night. Monologues sound less like comedy routines and more like campaign speeches dripping with the same predictable talking points. The result? Viewers aren't laughing anymore. They're rolling their eyes. Carson entertained America. Today's host divided. And that's why the magic of late night feels like a relic of the past.
Johnny, 100%. Well, Johnny Carson was unique in the sense that you don't really know if he leaned left or right. Sometimes he leaned left, sometimes he leaned right, but he was there to get laughs, and he realized what people wanted to do. And I remember, like, as you know, when we were little kids climbing into our mom and daddy's bed when they let us stay up late on a Friday, and we'd watch Johnny Carson, we'd all laugh together because Johnny was there to entertain.
At the end of the day, Rob Schneider's takedown of Jimmy Kimmel wasn't just about one comedian losing a job. It was about exposing the double standards, hypocrisy, and decline of modern entertainment. Rob reminded the woke crowd that free speech doesn't mean freedom from consequences, especially when you're on a public broadcast network. He pointed out the selective outrage silence when Roseanne Barr was fired, but outrage when Kimmel faced the same treatment. He highlighted how the left cheered government pressure on social media platforms to censor speech, yet cried foul when the trap they built snapped shut on their own. And in the backdrop of it all, Johnny Carson's legacy hangs heavy, reminding us that late night once made America laugh, not divide. That's the real lesson Kimmel's downfall should teach. And this brings us to the end of today's video. If you enjoyed it, then hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more